Hey moms, it's Laura Ollinger. Welcome to the Positively Healthy Mom podcast. Today, I am so excited to welcome Corinne Zuleger. She's going to be my guest today, and Corrine and I have known each other for several years now. We are both certified through the Neuroencoding Institute, and we are both elite neuroencoding specialists. However, I had the great fortune of getting to meet her in person about a year ago out in Las Vegas at a conference, and we just completely connected. We bonded. We sat by each other at dinner. We talked all night. And so today I'm so excited to bring her to the Positively Healthy Mom audience. So Corinne, say hello to everyone.
Hello, I'm excited to be here, Laura, and to be of service for your community. It's very exciting.
Yay, awesome. Okay, so we're just going to dive right in. We are not going to waste any time. So Corinne, I want you to kind of explain to the audience, what got you kind of doing what you're doing now. So in other words, what was your personal journey? I know personally that you've had a lot of loss. You've, had some struggles with mental health things. You have a whole story. So if we were to just kind of give the audience a summary, what would that be so they can just get an understanding of who you are?
Let's see. When our youngest was like 2, I had a nervous breakdown, which really was I was thinking about suicide. I couldn't figure out why I was feeling the way I was feeling. I didn't really know what was happening to me. And with some traditional therapy, some medication, I got kind of set on my path. But after a period of time of going through that therapy, I was like, I think I'm ready for something different. And I was introduced to the world of life coaching. I hired my first life coach and began working with her. Loved the results I was getting with her and the method that she was using to coach me.
Oh, awesome.
So I actually learned the technique, went and received us in that technique that she was using as well, which accesses the subconscious. After losing my dad and my brother both to substances, then it sent me kind of on a whole other path of trying to understand why people suffer from addiction. Why do some from a family have addictions to alcohol and drugs? And maybe, other people in the family don't have outward addictions. But then I started to learn even more about addiction, and it can look so much more, not just drugs and alcohol, but it could be food, it could be gambling, it could be shopping, so there's other dynamics to it. And then I really dove into the world of understanding adverse childhood experiences, which is early childhood trauma during those first 18 years of life, and specifically those first 8 years of life. So,
Oh, wow. That's so cool. I actually did not know that part about you, the early childhood part. So basically what you're saying is, you were a regular mom, you had 3 kids, and when you had your youngest who was 2 years old, you just had this kind of like mental breakdown. And I'm honestly, curious about, now after you've done all this work, I'm sure you can like trace back like what caused that. But like, at the time, what did you think was causing that? Did you have any idea?
yeah. Well, at that time, I thought everything was my husband's fault. That projection of blame was, he wasn't around enough. He was working all the time. I was the one home with the kids. I had all these perceived stresses and pressures. And once I started to unpack it, what it really was, a lot of it was due to residual from my childhood
Okay.
and wearing masks. So, like, as a woman and as a mom, the expectation that what a mom looks like, what does a good mom look like? A good mom, my perception of that was that she hangs all the laundry on the line. She makes everything from scratch. She's on Pinterest. She's doing all these great, fabulous, crafty things with her kids. And the reality of it is that wasn't me. I am an outdoors girl. And once I was able to turn that around with the kids, I love being outside. My kids all love to be outside. They're all very active. And I'm not Martha Stewart.
Oh, guess what? You're not? Oh my gosh, I didn't know that. Guess what? I'm not
Yeah.
Martha Stewart either. I mean, if we could all
Yeah.
just let go of that expectation, and it's
Yeah.
very difficult. I find that, that kind of mentality comes from a little bit of an older generation, and that's gotten passed
Mm-mm.
down. And I have several acquaintances and friends who have a mother-in-law or a mother or someone in their life. Maybe they had a grandmother who had that perfectionist attitude, and then they compare themselves and they know
Mm-hmm.
they don't measure up, and it's not fair. I'm like, what is the measurement stick that
Mm-hmm.
you're using that you're so unhappy? Because
Mm-hmm.
I see my friends and I think they're fantastic. I think they're amazing. They're awesome
Yeah.
moms, but they don't feel good enough because they're using this old-fashioned measurement tool that doesn't even make sense. Does that resonate with you?
Mm-hmm. Oh, it does. It does. And it was more, you're right, the generation. Like I grew up in the generation where the commercial was Angelique perfume. So it was like, I can bring home the bacon, fried up in a pan, and never let you forget you're a man because I'm a woman, right? So basically, the message I was receiving was, I can do all the things.
Mhm.
I can do it all, and I can do it all on my own. And so I never used my voice. I didn't ask anybody for help because it was like, well, I'm supposed to be able to do all of this
Mhm.
myself. It was
Yeah.
3 kids, 3 dogs, a cat, it was craziness. And then when our youngest was 7, I went back to work. And so it was like
Oh, wow.
still, and then all of their activities and all the things, right? So yeah, just so much
Yeah.
that, and I wasn't asking for help.
Yes. Okay. Well, you're literally the perfect person to have in this audience, because this is who I'm talking to. I'm talking to stay at
Mhm,
home moms, but I'm also talking to moms who work outside of the home in a formal sense.
mhm,
We are all working moms. It doesn't
mhm.
matter if it's
Oh yes.
employment or technically
Yeah.
unemployment. We're all working our butts off, and we're all tired. We're exhausted, and we're comparing ourselves.
Mhm,
And it just is, it's frustrating. So,
mhm,
now as a coach, so you are a transformational and mindset life coach. How do you help
mhm.
these women who are in this position when you come across women who kind of like what we just described?
Um, well, the first thing that we work with
Mhm.
is self-love. We work with um, the way we talk to ourselves, the way we feel about ourselves when we look in the mirror.
Mhm.
And that is my starting point. There's so much emphasis as a mother, and even just as a woman, that to loving others.
Mhm.
And I think that's fantastic because for me, love is the answer to everything.
Mhm.
And it starts here,
Mhm.
right here. When I
Mhm.
look in the mirror, can I look in the mirror and can I say, I love you?
Mhm.
And look in my eyes and honestly feel it, because I can remember the first time I did it, I couldn't make eye contact with myself. And
Mhm.
that's where I start, and then the little voices in my head. So, if I am saying that, is the little voice in my head telling me, oh, yeah, you don't mean that, and so really understanding that the words that I use when I talk to myself matter.
Mhm.
How I treat myself matters. And when because we're always modeling it,
Oh, I
whether
know.
it be our own kids, someone
Mhm.
else's kids, they're watching us. So if I'm looking at myself and I'm like, oh, I look disgusting in this outfit, or my hair looks like crap, or,
Mhm.
you know,
Mhm.
that's what they take on too, right? Or if
Mhm.
I think, gosh, I'm ugly.
Mhm.
Well, our babies, they're part of us. And I can't tell you how many people tell me my middle child looks just like me. And if I think I'm ugly,
Right.
what am I setting her up for then,
Mhm.
right? So there's a lot that feeds into the self-love portion, and
Mhm.
really being able to love yourself, talk nice to yourself, and feel it and believe it, not create a cognitive dissonance. Because I think that's important too, right? We can like that whole fake it till you make it kind of
Yeah.
thing isn't necessarily a really good way to approach things. But so yeah, just starting with the self-love, we start there, working on our I am, our identities,
Mm.
and then it just depends, because I don't believe in cookie cutter people.
Right.
So I use my own recipe. Like I have
Mhm.
many different tools, and
Mhm.
whatever each person needs, I just kind of start putting the tools together and come up with the right programming for that particular person when we're doing one-on-one coaching.
That sounds awesome. I so agree with you, starting with the self-love portion and then that identity aspect, because that's kind of like we have to go from the inside out, and that's where it starts. And, the expression, you have to put your oxygen mask on first. Like that would be the part that like you have to feed into yourself. So I completely agree with that. The other thing I know that you are passionate about talking about, which I am as well, is just kind of, emotions, like understanding emotions, regulating emotions, being in touch with them, like being authentic with them. Like you just said, you don't want cognitive dissonance. Like, like how do you kind of come to terms with what you're really feeling? Because, I don't want to jump ahead, but like, I know that is part of what like leads into addiction, that some of your family members dealt with when they're burying or stuffing such painful emotions that they can't like figure out what to do with. And so they have to avoid, and they go to substances, or what you said earlier, it could be anything. It could be food, it could be social media, it could be sex, anything, right? Just to like avoid.
Right.
So like, what is your best advice for someone who comes to you and they're like, oh my gosh, like, I don't even know where to start. Like, what is the basics about how to like kind of come to terms with your emotions?
I think with an emotion is really allowing ourselves to feel it. There can be a lot of chatter about, like this is a bad emotion. All emotions are a record of the past, and each emotion is here to teach us something, right? It comes up and out for a reason. So, we call it a trigger, right? Something triggers you. And let's say for me, I'm very sensitive. So I easily triggered to tears, and it drove my dad bananas. But I started to get really curious as to like, why does this make me cry? Why? I mean, I would cry when I was frustrated and angry too, So understanding like what happened before that?
Yeah.
What was the trigger? What just happened? Because okay, so let's say somebody did something to me. The question becomes, what did I make it mean about me?
Right.
Right? So when I'm looking at working with people and understanding nothing anybody else does is about you. Period.
So true.
Everything that people do is we are, we're in our own bubble and we're going about things. And so if I'm not nice to the cashier, it has nothing to do with the cashier and has everything to do with me.
It's
And so again, modeling, what am I modeling?
Exactly. And that's what I teach my teenage clients and my own kids, where they're all in this age where a lot is happening with the kids around them, their peers, and, they don't know what to do with that information. They're like, oh, I got spoken to this way. I got called this word or this name. I got treated like this. And what I explained to all of them is that this is a reflection of them, who they are, what is inside of them, what they're feeling. And if they're feeling pain, they're going to put the pain out, right? If they're feeling happy, they're going to put the happy out, right? It's like whatever is inside is going to come out one way or another. It's like squeezing an orange, we have some mentors, Kay and Shy. They always say, if you squeeze an orange, what's going to come out? Well, orange juice, but it's like, well, it depends what's inside, so, I think that's so important what you're saying just about, really feeling them. And I have to say, from my own personal experience, that was hard for me. I didn't do that until I was an adult. I don't think I really learned how to do that.
Okay.
Yeah. Until I went through my own personal journey. And I really started to feel so much more connected with myself. That mind-body connection, it sounds so cliche, but I finally understood like what it felt like to feel certain things and not push them or avoid them or dodge them or feel uncomfortable or even project them onto others, like we just talked about.
Right. Yeah. And I, in my coaching, I like to use the 4 circles. So making sure that we are taking care of the physical body, right? We're taking care of the emotional body, taking care of the social body, right? Our connections, and then the spiritual connection.
Mhm.
For me, it doesn't matter to me what you call it, as long as you know and have your own personal connection to the generative force that, are the creator. I, I feel like that's missing a lot in
Mm.
people's lives, right? So it's like driving around on a really bad flat or a blowout, so they got the three wheels of the car,
Mhm.
and they're trying to drive around on it, and the frame
Mm.
is getting wrecked because, they're driving around on just three tires. And I use the car analogy quite a bit because um, we tend to, as moms, a lot of times we're driving around with really low air on all four tires,
Yeah.
because we're serving in so many different areas and trying to juggle all of the things and not asking for the help, not
Mhm.
receiving the help, right? We're just not
Mhm.
we're afraid to use our voice because it might make us appear weak. Um,
Mm.
and just it, with that philosophy, right? Making sure that people understand what you were talking about, the mind body, spirit connection,
Mhm.
right? We have to serve it all. It all works interconnectedly. And if we don't
Mhm.
take care of it all, there something's going to eventually give.
Mhm. I think that car analogy is so fantastic. It really gives like a good visual
Yeah.
and is just a reminder of how we do need to have that self-care and take care of our well-being,
Hmm.
and we're going to function so much better if we are balanced and we're filled up. So what would be some ways that you would encourage a mom to fill up one of those tires? If there was air loose in one of them, what would you do?
Well, I feel like what happens with especially new moms is we're very sleep deprived. So
Mhm.
when someone says that they will come over and watch the baby so you can sleep, take them up on it. You know,
Yeah.
like, somebody says, they'll bring over a casserole, whatever it is. People offer,
Mhm.
and what, in my experience, people don't offer unless they genuinely mean it. They genuinely mean it because we're not going to put ourselves out there unless we want to follow through with something like that. So
Mm.
take them up on that.
Mhm. Mhm.
I think that's an easy way. The other component would be um, it's important to take care of our stuff. And what I mean by that is we bring a whole backpack full of stuff into our relationships, into raising our children, if we haven't healed that.
Mhm.
I carried a pretty heavy backpack, so shame and guilt, those
Mm.
things that I started looking at how many years. I mean, some of those things were carried around for a really long time, like 30 years.
Mm.
And
Mhm.
so it's really around forgiveness. So one of the things that I say I'm an expert at is doing forgiveness work because I spent so much time really forgiving others and forgiving myself.
Mm.
Because that was the crucial piece, right? Because can you forgive yourself? And that, I believe, is one of the hardest pieces of it. So, forgive themselves, take other people up on helping with their family, um, ride shares, one other mom, takes
Carpool.
a day, you take a
Yeah.
day, carpool, right? I mean, that's awesome. The other thing is, I wanted to let my kids be involved in everything. We didn't have, a lot of that opportunity growing up because everything costs money, right?
Mhm.
Um, and so that wasn't available for us. And so I wanted to have my kids have everything. I wanted to have them all. I wanted to, and then I started to realize um, I don't see my kids. I don't
Oh.
see them because they're always gone,
Mhm.
like they're always running and they're always
Mhm.
going, and we want them to be independent.
Mhm.
And, we want to spend time with them because how else do you help have influence on them?
Mhm.
So maybe saying no, right?
Ooh.
Or
Yeah.
having like a limit, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Boundaries.
it can be a lot. Right? Just a good, healthy boundary around, how often, right? How many sports we can do in one season.
Mm.
Not how many activities we can do in one season.
Mhm.
So that's advice that is very much a learned experience. The other thing is to let them, um, if they forgot their lunch,
Yeah.
they might have to eat the lunch at school. If they
Yes.
forgot their homework, natural and logical consequence of forgetting your homework. You're going to put it in your
Mhm.
backpack the night before.
Mhm.
Helping them establish some, um, you know, habits, right? Helping them establish some habits for themselves, and doing those things and setting them up for success. Other components, just spiritually, find people that you connect with, genuinely
Mm.
connect with it. Maybe if it's not a church, that it's a spiritual group, whatever it is for you, get in nature.
Mhm.
um, Going out into nature and um, having your feet in the ground, picking up on the electromagnetic component of the
Grounding.
earth and letting it ground
Yeah.
you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one. I mean, honestly, I had a question over the weekend. Somebody asked me, what was my favorite toy, and it was to be outside. My brother and I were outside all the time,
Mm.
running, jumping, climbing, getting into mischief, whatever it
Mhm.
was. But so, anyways, those were just kind of like, some of them, making sure that you're getting enough sleep, you're
Yep.
putting good food into your tank. I'm like, would you put crappy gas in your gas tank?
I know. Yeah.
But, right? Breakfast is a donut. I'm thinking that's not a good way to start out.
Yeah, I like to use the racehorse analogy, right? Like, would you feed a racehorse
Yeah.
crappy food? Well, not if you want him to win the race. So why are we feeding ourselves bad things and, too much alcohol and too much caffeine and not enough water and not enough, fresh food, whole
Yeah.
foods, things like that. So all those were
Sure.
great. As you were speaking, I was kind of just like, feeling it, emotionally in my body and seeing how it felt and thinking about how it even applies to me. And, I'm past the baby stage. Like, I'm like, oh, I don't need help
Yeah.
with the issues like this, or having like someone come help me so I could take a nap. But how else could I need help or get help? And I thought the carpool was great. That's something I do a lot. But the one thing I really loved what you said was about connecting socially. I think that is so important. And just having your group of people
Hmm.
and, having it be whether, it's girlfriends that are, the parents of your kids, or these people other places and they're different ages, whatever that might be. But just having that support network, I think, is so important. I know there's a lot of
Hmm.
moms, and a lot of moms are great about that. Others are not so great about it. A lot of them are isolated, they're
Hmm.
locked in, or they will go to school pickup and they'll say hi to a few people, but they never really open up. They're not vulnerable. And I think that that's something that I know I miss a lot, because I have my group of people that I'm really vulnerable with. I share everything and I'm very open. And then
Hmm.
there's the moms where, we just want to be closed up and look like we're all put together and look like everything's fine and not really share. And
Yeah.
that's fine and understandable. We don't want to just go around spilling our guts to every person we meet, right? Like, there has to
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
limit to
Yeah.
that. But knowing that we do have some people that we can
Hmm.
rely on and that are supportive and that make us feel good. I love the nature stuff. I absolutely love that, getting out in the fresh air in the sun. I think that is so fantastic. So those are all really great tips. Like, I loved them all, like everything that you said. I'm going to pause this conversation with Corrine. If you'd like to hear more, listen to my next episode of the Positively Healthy Mom. Thank you for listening to the Positively Healthy Mom podcast, because there's no manual for the hardest job in the world. Don't forget to subscribe and share with your friends.